Have you ever found yourself snapping at someone you love or breaking a promise to yourself for the 100th time and just wondering, why did I do that? It can feel like you had absolutely no choice in the matter. Well, today we are going to pull back the curtain on the hidden operating system that runs your life, this powerful trinity of feeling, thought, and action. Zero point 0.3 seconds. That tiny, tiny fraction of a second, it's pretty much everything. It's this little sliver of time, a pause that holds the key to changing your habits, your relationships, and yeah, your entire life. So the real question is, where is it hiding, and how on earth do we actually use it? You know, we all have this invisible autopilot. It's that force that just takes over when you procrastinate on that big project, or you find yourself reaching for that snack you swore you were done with. It's the very reason we so often act on impulse, even when our logical brain is screaming, "Don't do it!" And in that split second, the feeling is it's overwhelming. It's this sense of being completely powerless, like some other force is pulling the strings. It honestly feels like the action just happens to you, and you're just left there to clean up the mess afterward. So what is this mysterious force? Well, it's not just one thing. It's actually three things, all working together in this constant looping cycle. These are the hidden forces behind every single decision you make: feeling, thought, and action. And just understanding how they connect, that's the first step to taking back the controls. So everything, and I mean everything, starts with a feeling. And it happens way faster than you can think. There's this tiny part of your brain, the amygdala, that fires off an alarm in just 12 milliseconds. That's long before your conscious mind has even had its coffee. Feeling isn't the enemy of reason. It's the fuel that gets the whole engine started. Okay, so next, thought enters the picture. But here's the twist, the part that most of us get wrong. Thought doesn't usually create the action. Nope, its main job is to interpret and justify the feeling that's already there. It spins a story around the emotion to make it all make sense. And finally, boom, there's the action. This is the moment you say the words, or you eat the cake, or you slam the laptop shut. It's the physical manifestation of the feeling and the story that came right before it. But you know what? The story doesn't end here. And here it is. This is the big secret. It's not a straight line from feeling to thought to action. It's a loop, a feedback loop. Your action creates a brand new feeling, which then sparks a new thought, which leads to another action, and on it goes. Now, this cycle can either trap you, or it can set you free. The psychologist Jonathan Haidt came up with the perfect metaphor for this. He said to imagine your emotional brain is a giant, powerful elephant, and your rational brain, it's the tiny rider sitting on top. Now, that rider might think they're steering, but let's be honest, when that 6-ton elephant decides it's gonna charge, the rider is just along for the ride. The key isn't to fight the elephant, it's to learn how to work with it. Okay, so this brings us to the most powerful idea in this whole explainer. There is a space, a tiny gap, between that initial feeling and the final action. This is where your freedom lives. This is your 0.3 seconds. I mean, think about this. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor, wrote about this from inside a concentration camp. He realized that even when you can't control what happens to you, that's the stimulus, you can always control how you respond. That space, he said, is the last of the human freedoms. And what's wild is that this isn't just philosophy. Neuroscience has actually measured this gap. Back in the 1980s, experiments by a guy named Benjamin Libet found that our unconscious brain activity starts up about 300 milliseconds. That's 0.3 seconds before we're even consciously aware of our decision to act. Now, a lot of people heard that and said, see, free will is an illusion. But Libet didn't think so. He argued that while we might not control that initial spark, that first impulse, we have a conscious window of time to veto it. So free will isn't about starting the action. It's the power to say no to the autopilot. It's the freedom to hit the brakes. So this is all really fascinating, right? But how do we actually use it? How do we make that 0.3 second gap just a little bit wider so we have more time to choose? Okay, let's get practical. Here are 3 powerful tools you can start using literally today. First up is something called the stop technique. It's super simple. The next time you feel a strong emotion bubbling up, anger, anxiety, whatever, just mentally yell stop. Then take 1 deep breath, in and out. Then just observe what's happening in your body without judging it. And then you can proceed with a conscious choice, not just a knee-jerk reaction. That simple act creates that crucial space. Okay, tool number 2 is cognitive reframing. Remember how we said that thought just justifies the feeling? Well, this tool calls its bluff. When your mind starts telling you a story like, I always mess this up, I want you to challenge it with this one question. Ask yourself, is the story I'm telling myself right now 100% true? Almost always, the answer is no. And that question challenges the story your autopilot loves to tell. And number 3 is habit stacking. This one is so smart because you're not fighting your brain's autopilot. You're hijacking it. You take a new action you want to build and you attach it to a habit that's already automatic, like pouring your morning coffee. The old habit becomes the trigger for the new one. So, after I pour my coffee, I will immediately write for 10 minutes. You're borrowing the power of an old habit to build a new one. So, why does mastering this internal loop matter so much? Because it scales. It starts with these tiny moments, these tiny choices, but they add up to the entire trajectory of your life. This isn't just about avoiding one argument. It's about consciously, intentionally building the person you actually want to become. And I want to be clear, this isn't some fluffy self-help trick. This is the fundamental operating system of being human. For a leader, it's about responding with clarity when everyone else is panicking. In a relationship, it's creating safety because you pause before you react. For your health, it's feeling a craving without being a slave to it. This is as fundamental as it gets. You know, we tend to think of character as this fixed thing, something you're just born with. But that's not it at all. Character is a skill. It's the result of thousands of tiny choices you make in that 0.3-second gap. Every single time you choose your response, you're carving a new pathway in your brain. You are literally building your character, choice by choice. So that 0.3-second delay between an impulse and a conscious choice, it's not a flaw in our design. It's not a bug. It's the most profound feature we have. The gap isn't some empty void. It's a world of opportunity. The gap is the gift. The only question left is, what are you going to do with it?